Dear friends, hope you're all doing well. I want to wish you all a wonderful Shabbos. As we go ahead, we're going to be celebrating and marking a new month, bringing in the month of Tammuz. And I want to wish you all a good Shabbos, a good Chodesh, a good month, and a healthy summer, a wonderful summer. And dear friends, on that note, let us do the next installment of the Daily Mitzvah, the 99th day. We are continuing the laws of kosher, and we are segueing from kosher into laws about foods in general. So a little bit beyond the specific scope of kosher. Mitzvah number 1 is, of course, one of the most famous laws about kosher: no eating milk and meat. As the Torah says, you shall not cook a young domesticated animal with his mother's milk. Now, you may wonder, okay, please excuse all the noise in the background over here. Okay. All right, back to the plot. So, the Rambam says like this. The verse, the words in the Torah, it says leisa vashel, don't cook. How did you get from don't cook to don't eat? So the Rambam says that these words, leisa vashel, these 5 words, which are the basis of the whole mixing milk and meat prohibition, they are repeated in the Torah 3 separate occasions. 3 times you have this verse. Therefore, says the Rambam, our sages learn from there that really there are 3 separate laws that the Torah speaks about over here. Number 1 is don't cook, which that will be next mitzvah. The second point is don't eat. It's forbidden for a Jew to eat. And number 3, the third time, is that it's forbidden for a Jew to have pleasure. And the Rambam adds, which means you're not allowed to derive pleasure from the creation or from the presence of milk and meat. For example, you're not allowed to be this wholesaler of it. You're not allowed to sell it. You're not allowed to make money off of it. You're not allowed to get any type of pleasure from mixing milk and meat. Now, the Rambam says something very, very interesting. In general, when there are laws about forbidden foods, like for example, let's say eating chametz on Pesach, you're not allowed to have chametz, leavened breads, leavened foods on Pesach. But if you force it down your throat and you don't enjoy eating it, for example, the Rambam says it's boiling hot and it's burning your throat, and you're just stuffing it down your throat, which means you're eating it, you're technically eating it, but there's zero pleasure involved, you're not in violation of the mitzvah. Which means, generally speaking, eating something is considered to be a somewhat pleasurable activity. If you're eating something and there's zero pleasure, there's only pain, then you are not in violation anytime there's a mitzvah of don't eat this. The only exclusion, one of the only few exclusions of this rule is when it comes to milk and meat. That even if you ate it and you had zero pleasure from it, but if it went down your throat, you're in violation of this mitzvah. And this is the first mitzvah for today: don't eat milk and meat. The second mitzvah for today is don't cook milk and meat, which is the more literal meaning of what the Torah says. Don't cook a young domesticated animal in his mother's milk. Now, by the way, the elephant in the room over here is that the Torah doesn't say milk and meat. The Torah says a gedi, a young animal in his mother's milk. So how do we get from young animal in his mother's milk to milk and meat in general? That's totally widening the scope of the prohibition. So good question, not for now. Okay. Third mitzvah for today. We are now moving on to a brand new style of laws within food-related laws, but it's not specifically about kosher. There's a very interesting law which is not as relevant today, although to some degree it is relevant, but it was mainly relevant in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, and especially in temple times, which was called Chodesh. Chodesh was an idea that if there was a brand new harvest of grain, that harvest could be ready, depending where on the globe you live. It could be ready in March, or it could be ready early April. You are not allowed to eat from that new grain until the Karban Omer was brought in the Holy Temple, which was brought on the second day of of Pesach, the 16th of Nisan. They would take some of the grain from the brand new harvest. They would bring a Karban, an offering in the Holy Temple. With that Karban, now you're allowed to eat and begin enjoying the new harvest of grain. So we have 3 mitzvahs that all have to do, that revolve around this mitzvah. This mitzvah is called Chodesh. Chodesh means brand new. The prohibition from eating brand new grain until the carbon was brought. The carbon omer was brought in the Holy Temple. So first mitzvahs, it's forbidden to eat bread, which was made from brand new grain from this year until the 16th of Nisan passes, which was when the carbon omer was brought. As the Torah says, "V'lechem v'koli v'chamel v'yiseichlu." Bread and roasted wheat and raw wheat should not be eaten. The next mitzvah is the next clause of the verse. Roasted grain. You're not allowed to eat any roasted grain. I believe that's what it is. Roasted grain. Yeah. Kali is roasted grain. Until the exact same gig. Until the carbon omer is brought in the 16th of Nisan. Same pasuk. Third mitzvah. It's forbidden to eat raw grain until the carbon omer is brought on the 16th of Nisan. And the exact same thing. We have the exact same mitzvah. Final mitzvah for today is that you're not allowed to eat for the first 3 years of a tree. You are not allowed to eat from its fruit. You must wait until 3 years have passed, and only the fruit that grow after the 3 years are allowed to be eaten. As the Torah says, that for the first 3 years, you should not touch the tree, don't cut it, and don't eat it. After the 3 years, then you are allowed to begin eating from the fruit of the trees. And this is a mitzvah that applies also outside of the land of Israel. Even the Torah doesn't say it, but the Rambam says this is something which we received from Moshe Rabbeinu. Our dear teacher Moses was the one who taught us this law, that it even applies outside in the diaspora, outside of Israel. Dear friends, that is our mitzvahs, our next installment. I want to wish you all a good Shabbos. We'll see you all soon, and Sei gesund.